Hey, what is up, beautiful recruiters and Neil? This is David Stephen Patterson. I'm sorry. You got me DSP. This is the Headhunters Live, episode number 11. And we have a very special guest on, Dave Nerz. Before we do that, I want to say hello to Mr. Chris Wessell, known as the Professor, but I like to call him Face because he's the best-looking guy here on the show.
Face man from the A-Team, for those of you who missed the conversation earlier.
That's right. I'm a Murdoch guy personally. And then we have Neil Lebovits right over here, my brother from another mother, the boss man. And today we have an amazing show. We have Dave Nerz from NPA Worldwide. We're going to bring him out here in just a few minutes. Before we do so, if you're watching that live,
Split
do me a favor.
Network, for those of you who don't know who they are, right, David?
Split Network. That's right.
And we actually had a couple of split-related posts even today in the group. So I made sure to comment on those so that they were aware to watch, because this continues to be a very hot topic. So I think everybody's going to get a lot from this.
Well, we want to help this show grow like a rocket. So if you guys can help us out here in the audience, if you're watching this right now live, comment live down below. Also, show us some emotion. Give us a like, a love, a hate. I don't care. We just need your emotion. We feed off of it, and it'll help the algorithm. So help us out there. And if you're watching the replay, comment replay down below, because we'd love to see who's listening to the show. That said, before we bring Dave on, though, Neil, sorry, we were just this streaming system's kind of weird because Neil was literally mid-sentence.
Oh,
and then we went live.
It's green room banter. It's green room talk. Sometimes not appropriate for the viewing audience. This one would be, but
it's like bedroom talk. Bedroom talk. You know, I tell you what, Neil, I've heard you've got some of the best bedroom talk in the biz.
You know what, David? The key is just caring. No, just kidding.
Can I go back
Pretend
to
like you care. Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, hey, so that said, we're really excited about.
Is this product placement, by the way? Is this product placement? I should get paid for this.
I can't read that.
We were joking about that last week when I was drinking Pepsi, that all the money we're making from our digit single viewers. I mean, I have like 3 cents I'm going to make from Pepsi. It's amazing.
Oh, big money. Big money. Although we're getting bigger every week, which is actually due to you guys. So the more that you guys can, again, comment, like, love, etc., share it. If every one of you watching now shared the show, we would be bigger than Rogan. Well, maybe not bigger than Rogan, but we'd be pretty big. So that said, let's talk about Dave Nerz, because Neil, you worked with Dave Nerz in the past. Dave Nerz is well, let's let you do it, because you know Dave really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I met Dave. Dave was looking for a speaker many years ago. I'll have to figure out when it was, a decade ago. I don't know. And I spoke in New Orleans, and NPA is an amazing organization, split organization, much more than that. Dave will fill you in. But I was real impressed with him. We've done a bunch of different partnerships. But what I love, and I remember at the time, I had a big LinkedIn product, and it was the one I've been the most passionate about my whole career. And everyone bought it. Here's the thing. You don't love them because they bought it. I love them because they're so engaged, and it's just something that Dave will talk about, the culture of it, but it's a very different group of people that are there for a common mission, and Dave will fill you in on the rest. So yeah, I guess without further ado, he could tell you more of the story, but I introduced Dave, to David. I get so confused, but I introduced Dave to David. David to David, and they've known each other also peripherally, and there we go. So yeah, he's a great guy, and I'm excited for the episode. And I know Chris has lots of questions, and Chris was saying, we man the boards all the time to what we want to talk about in our groups, and splits again yesterday there was like 3 of them, as Chris was saying. Mm-hmm. So we're excited about this.
And also one thing, 2019, $6 million in shared fees in 1 year.
And they're on 6 continents, right? They're everywhere. Like they're all over the globe. And the U.S. is their. I'm pretty sure it's still their biggest market. They will tell us. I mean, it's got to be, but it's really a great organization. And I refer people to them all the time. I don't get any referral fee, right? It's not about that. I don't have a deal with them where it refers people to boss. It's all about they're the ones. They're the ones that's the only ones I know. There's top echelon, and we'll talk about that and what he thinks are the differences. But they're the ones I refer people to.
Let's bring Dave on.
Because of this, just real quick, because of the scale they operate at, and the amount of successes they had, and the amount of time, them, top echelon, a couple others, Just the takeaways, I think, for the individuals watching this, even if they're just trying to do a split between them and another recruiter that they know or don't know, I think there's a lot of takeaways we're going to have here in terms of like best practices, what to do, what not to do, because they have so many examples to draw from. So pretty excited for that as well.
Well, let's bring him on. Let's talk, because I've got a bone. Because I'll tell you what, I've got a bone to pick with Dave Nerz, and I want to start off with this. I want to start off. Sorry, Dave, to slap you with this right off the bat, but according to your website, you say you're worldwide. Heck, it's in the name. Yet you're only on 6 continents.
It is.
Is it truly worldwide?
We're trying to get Neil to move to Antarctica, and then we could complete the circuit. But he says he loves Manhattan too much, so he's going to stick there. We're going to have to recruit somebody. Maybe you guys could help me recruit somebody to be a recruiter in Antarctica.
And then you'll truly be worldwide, and then it won't be false advertising anymore.
There you go.
Anyway, just kidding about that. But Dave, really a pleasure to have you on here. And yeah, I guess let's start off. I mean, who are you? Who are you? What do you do? Like, who are you in this really weird land of misfit toys we call recruiting?
Well, hey, thanks for having me. I'm not sure about that yet based on the way this thing started, but so I'm president of NPA Worldwide, and just you kind of got to look at the organization to understand what I am in terms of my role. But the organization, it's a really strange configuration because it's a member-owned cooperative. So each of the 585 members of NPA owns the network. It's run by a volunteer board of directors that I and my staff report to. And then I'm a paid employee running the network on their behalf. So some days I'm listening to their instructions. Other days I'm telling them what they need to do. So it's kind of a weird deal.
Well, listen, and why that's so important, speaking from someone that worked with Dave in my previous life of partnerships and stuff, is NPA, all they care about is the membership and how it benefits them. It's not about the money that they can make off of it for them, which would be different from any other split network that's revenue based, right? So it's really, it has a lot of deep implications for the membership.
Yeah, as I tell people, our goal in life is to exist next year, meaning that we're covering our basic costs. We don't have to make money. We don't have to raise prices to members to grow revenue share to the owners or anything like that. It's just about being in existence. And we've been doing it 68 years in a row. So we got a pretty good track record of existing the next year.
Yeah, and that's amazing, because think about what that means, and that's why the engagement is so high, and no one else has that. So those of you, I endorse NPA, but again, this isn't a loaded meeting, and because Dave's on.
Well,
no, the one thing I'll say. Well,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Well, I just want to interrupt you real quick, because one thing that I've always talked about a lot in terms of my journey as a recruiter is that, I think for most recruiters, at least the old school recruiters, we all fell ass backwards into the business. I mean, nowadays you can take college courses in recruiting. But back when we got in, we just sort of not many people really knew what recruiting was. And if they did, you're usually an accountant who didn't want to be an accountant anymore. So you decided to become an accounting recruiter. So a lot of ways, we're the land of misfit toys. They're the toys who didn't belong anywhere else. So we found each other in this really weird community. And when I was first starting, it was always tough, because I always felt I was on an island, especially when I started my own firm. I was never really part of any organizations until much later. And now it's, with NPA Worldwide and all these other organizations and just the internet in general, to be able to interact and just form friendships with, weird recruiters like that guy or this guy. It's nice, not just from the split perspective, but just from a friendship perspective. And I just want to interject there. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but it's just something I think is pretty important. Yeah. And I guess let me ask you, is that something that you see as something, one of the benefits you get from an NPA Worldwide, just making friends?
Yeah, I'd say it's one of the things that differentiates us from some of the other ways of doing splits, is that a lot of times the people in our network really have become very close friends. They're people who vacation together and all sorts of other things. And I do have a story that I want to tell you about a friendship that forged out of a sad incident. But just about the different types of recruitment networks that are out there, I just look at it as a recruiter. If you're willing to do a split every now and then, you should join a network. It doesn't cost that much to be a part of something, whether it's NPA or TE or whoever it is. You should belong because it creates opportunities for you with your clients. If you're specialized in, like Chris does leadership type things, but he needs an administrative assistant. Let somebody else that works on administrative assistants lead that charge for you. You bring them to your client together. You go in as a united front and you provide them an assistant of some sort. You're expanding your ability to serve your client. And it costs you like next to nothing. And if you do a split every 2 or 3 years, it's a winner from a cash flow standpoint. It's not really
right. One every 2 or 3 years, David. Well, that's amazing, right?
And Dave, like to echo your point there, like I always felt like sometimes I've talked to people that were a little reluctant to do splits, and it's very. I mean, sometimes, and we can get into this. There's a lot of trust needs to be established, and there's the right ways to go about it, and the wrong ways, and I know we'll get into that. But if you're new to the business and business development is a struggle for a lot of people trying to get started in this group, and they're like, hey, I know how to recruit or whatever, but they're still learning how to like get clients. This is a good springboard for you you can split, you can learn some stuff along the way, probably from your split partner. You can build a base from which you can grow. And then if you're the experienced person, like I'm 20 years in, and people that are my peers will be like, well, I don't need to do splits. I can go find my own clients. And yeah, but to your point, you're exactly right. Like it allows you to continue to specialize, but also if your customer needs something that you aren't the best person to deliver on it, you're capturing revenue that wouldn't have been available to you otherwise. So who cares if you spread half of it?
Even better than that, you do not introduce a competitor to your client.
Right, because and that is something that recruiters get concerned about. Once upon a time, like my last firm that I had a technology staffing, engineering, et cetera firm. For about 10 years, I had several recruiters working for me, and we were placing engineers at a company. And then they also needed like production workers and warehouse workers because it was a like hardware engineering type of company. Now we wanted that engineering staffing business because that's where the money was. But we're like, we got to do something about these like $9 an hour. If we let a temp agency in through the back door, they're going to snake the rest of our business. I know. So like now I went about like, okay, we're just going to fill these positions. So we tried to handle it internally, which was challenging because it's a totally different set of work. And at the end of the day, but that's what we did. Cause you're like, it's a very valid point that you want to protect that relationship and make sure that somebody doesn't sneak in the back door just cause you can't deliver on a particular role. It's very real.
May I
also you better serve your client too. Cause I mean, the way I look at it is when like right now,
you're the go-to
in the current market, when jobs are plenty and it's a really hot market, you don't really need to really serve your clients very well. I mean, you should, but it's not like there's plenty of business out there. But when you're, when clients are hard to get, I think you really got to do everything you possibly can to serve your client, fulfill the hell out of every one of their jobs, or at least the ones that you can work on. And so if you're an IT recruiter and they've got an accounting position you wouldn't normally work out in the past, but now you can develop a relationship with other accounting recruiters that you trust, and you could then be that conduit and really truly serve your client. Because I think, because it's getting the client is so hard. And it's really easy to lose a client. And right now, just with every recruiter, that the ones that are struggling, when you get a client, you keep that client safe, right? You want to service that client as much as humanly possible. And I think it's a big part of it is just you want to keep your client happy. And they're happy with you.
And another quick angle
sorry,
go ahead.
I was just saying, because I wanted to add on before you get on to a new point. What you did, Chris, is common to take it on. And what David said, at least what you can place. Don't place stuff that is not your specialty because you think it's low-hanging, easy money.
You're probably gonna lose money on that.
Yeah. It's fool's gold. You will lose money. Listen, it's fool's gold, right? Like it's the amount of time you spend on candidates that you will never use again. The inefficiency you have on opportunity cost is ridiculous. Take 50% fast with a split partner from NPA or whomever, and don't fill stuff out of your world. It's a mistake. And Chris,
I guarantee those handful of engineering positions I filled years ago at that company, I wasn't aware of this at the time because I was still learning the business. I'm sure I fully cannibalized any profitability that was from there in spending resources on trying to fill those
so you're never going to have another client for those.
And at the end of the day, yeah. And the other thing I think is an interesting angle especially for experienced recruiters is like take my case. If I place like a CHRO or a CFO or something like that. Granted, I get paid well to do it, et cetera, but there's efficiencies that can be gained there, because what about the other top couple candidates or the other people I talk to along the way who are not a good fit for that client? I could do, traditional, like conventional wisdom is you fill the role and you move on, and maybe you call some of them if you have another job order someday. Well, what if there's another outlet for that? Right. And I think there's a phrase an old manager of mine used 20 years ago, which is there's gold in them, their files. And like, that's exactly what's going on here. So I'll shut up.
There's gold in them, their bits. We can say bits now, right? It's the same thing. Yeah.
Well, Dave, so actually that's a good segue. So Chris, he mentioned back in the day, that he was trained, there's gold in them, their files. And, so me, I started about 97, started searching 2000. I know Neil is older than dirt, so I think he was doing it around the turn of the
88
century.
88.
You don't look a day over 90, man. Now
No,
I'll tell
not
you
my
what.
age.
Oh, my bad.
Some gonna beat you, bastard. Farting sucker.
But the business has changed a lot. It really is significantly changed. Like I said, people take college classes in recruiting, which is, again, when I started, people didn't know what it was. I had no idea you could charge a fee for placing somebody. It's weird. So I'm curious. What looking back at that, right? You've got a foot now. Having looked back at like when you started in the business, what do you think has changed the most? Like what are some of the big changes that you've seen, whether for better or for worse? But like, how do you describe the change from now versus like when we started in the business?
I'd say, David, the tools have changed, but a lot of stuff really hasn't changed. And I think that's the interesting thing about recruitment. So if you think about it, I've only been in the business since 2006. So only about 20% of the time Neil's been in the business. But what I would say is that back then people were afraid of monster, or they were afraid there was somebody was going to take over the recruitment space and dislodge them from what they did. And so today people would say, they would say it's AI. 3 years ago, they would have said it was LinkedIn. Before that, they would have said it was Monster or Career Builder. There's always somebody that I think the recruiters have a good level of paranoia, which is not a bad thing all around. But what I would say is that what really works in the industry is the quality and the skills that people had even before the internet. If you know how to call somebody, if you know how to have a conversation with them, if you can understand their motivations for change or their skill set. So it's true recruitment. And I look at people who are really successful right now, and they're engaged in kind of really good extraction exercises. They're not involved in database searches as much as they're involved in targeted extraction. So targeted extraction is still going to net you really big dollars in this business. And I would guess, like Chris, you probably do more targeted extraction than you do database. I mean, you have to do database searching perhaps to figure out who you're going to target and pull. But it's that ability to move from a list of people to a list of engaged possible candidates that makes the difference. And I think that's where some people are looking at technology as the panacea, and really technology is just another tool to get you closer to that targeted extraction.
And Dave, so it's funny too, you had mentioned the paranoia. We at David and I, we created a split board a couple of years ago, and it never really worked. But the big problem that people had with it was the lack of trust, the paranoia on that losing a client. So you can say, well, if it's split, you don't have to risk a competitor getting in. The paranoid recruiter says, this guy's going to steal my account. Now at NPA, how is that avoided? Now the partnership does. And how do you police it? Do people come to you? So talk about how do people that are paranoid about doing splits say, don't be with NPA? Go. Like, I want to hear that. Yeah.
So, I mean, we have a rule that you're not allowed to go after the other person's client or their candidate, actually. I mean, it doesn't matter. And I think the issue there is that if you're a bad operator, you're going to be expelled from NPA, and you'll get a reputation for somebody who's a bad operator. We don't expel that many people. There are people who make mistakes. I mean, one of the things we have in our sharing tool is a checkbox that you click that says, if you're posting a job, is it allowed to be advertised elsewhere? And either yes or no question. It's not a maybe. Some cases people will put no, and then they'll say, call me if you're interested in advertising it. But I'm involved in one today where somebody didn't read the button properly, and one of their recruiters started advertising a job. It caused a lot of problems. So that person there'll be a lengthy board discussion about that individual. There'll be communication between myself, the board leaders, with that individual who kind of broke the rule, and hopefully it doesn't result in a lost client along the way. But there's a lot of practices in place. There's a lot of training in place that lets people know how it works. And if you're breaking the rules, then you will be out of NPA pronto. So that's the way we manage it.
Awesome. I remember when we spoke, Dave, about the show.
Someone asked me a question. Just one last one while you're on that. Someone asked, and I didn't know it. Do you review? Are the partners, split partners, reviewed? Like, do you have an Amazon kind of like rating system so people can see, wow, this person's done a lot of splits? I didn't know. I thought it was a great idea. I'd throw it. And I said,
so it is a great idea. It's come up. It probably comes up about every 6 months. Yeah. And the idea comes up, and I just said, okay, if we did it, my job would be full-time police officer, managing. Susie Q got mad at Jimmy, and Jimmy got mad at Susie Q, and they put bad ratings on one another, and then I'd have to navigate through that. So I just, our philosophy is kind of like this, and that is, you need to develop relationships with people you're going to work with. And if it's not working, cut it loose, move on. There are 585 independent firms in our network. Go find somebody else that you relate to that works the way you want to work. Don't spend time trying to get somebody to work your way if they're not willing to work your way naturally. Because it's just
think of it just like a client, right? Don't beat a dead horse. Yeah.
And they're vetted too, right? People have to understand they're vetted at NPA. You go to others, you sign up to a link, you give your credit card, and you give your stuff, and that's it. So there's a David. When I introduce people, I introduce them to Dave. You introduce them to his main person. There, the recruiters go through it, right? They go through a
over the years. In fact, I would say that it's starting to change a little bit in terms of where the numbers come from. But it used to be 50% of our members were member-to-member referrals.
Wow.
So, and the reason it's changing is because our desire to grow the network, and Sarah Freiberger, who does that, her efforts are so strong that we got a good channel of people coming in who have found out about us through our outgoing marketing efforts, as opposed to pure member-to-member referrals. But those people all go through background checks. We're looking for people who've been in the industry at least a solid year performing. We're looking for people who have a history of doing placements. We're looking for people who have a history of doing split placements. So, and then they get interviewed by the directors, and then they get brought on, and they're in a probationary status for their first number of months of existence in NPA, which means that we can let them go for any reason whatsoever. Doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes we have to exercise that one.
Now, let's talk about recruiters being paranoid, because I'm going to go back to that, because I know back when I first started back in business, when you go to a conference, and because we're on islands, right? So it's not like we had a lot of interaction online, because there was really no online to speak of. So we go to conferences, and we go out drinking, get drunk with our buddies and all that kind of bragging about our billings, but we would never actually say our client names. It always was like kind of like a mob thing. Like, I don't want to, you very never mention the client name, because if you mention client name, they're going to go after your client. Now, obviously everybody knows everybody else. We have LinkedIn, so it's not a big, not as much of a big deal as it was back then. But I'm curious though, because there is still some paranoia, especially on splits with people stealing candidates, clients, and whatnot. I remember you were telling me, I think it was last week when we spoke about this. You had a really interesting idea on how you could protect yourself if you're the one actually submitting candidates to a split partner. Would you mind sharing that with the? I think it was a great tip. I think it was brilliant, and it's really simple.
Yeah. So I suggest to people. I mean, first of all, you call them. You find out if they really want help. Say, hey, I'm going to dedicate 20 hours this week or 40 hours to you this week finding candidates for your job. Do you really need help, or do you already have your short list and people are just finalists and you're waiting to confirm that? Find out if the job's for real and they're still open. If it is, then you start pursuing it. And you say, hey, look, I'm guessing you might have some internal candidates, or you might have some people already on your list that you're looking at. I don't want to send you candidates and have you tell me, oh, already have them. Already have them. Already been considering them. That's not going to work for me. So here's what I need you to do. Go look at the list of people that you actually are seriously considering. Give me their initials. I don't need anything more than their first and last initial. And I'm going to start submitting candidates to you. And the candidates that I submit to you that don't have those first or last initials, I'm expecting that you don't have them, and you're not going to call me and say, oh yeah, I had them on my list, because we all know everybody's available to everybody. It's not, everybody's on LinkedIn. They're in your databases. You haven't considered them. I'm going to be the cause of you considering them. I don't want you to tell me after I did the work that you already had them under consideration. So give me the initials of the 2 or 3 people on your short list, and I'll provide you ones that don't have those initials.
It's clever. Now, of course, if I were to be asked that question, I'd say F you. Oh, because my candidate was Frank Underwood. But anyway. Well, that said, what about other some ninja? I thought personally it was a pretty brilliant little tactic, and it's really simple. But what are some other? Well, actually, let me ask you this: what are some of the landmines? So, someone who's never really had an experience with splits before, or maybe very limited experience, what are some of the landmines that they need to watch out for, and how do you watch out for them?
Well, I think a lot of it gets solved, David, with relationships. So one of the landmines is people who are candidate sourcers love to just go to they see a job, they go to their database, they start pulling candidates out of the database, and they start sending them. The person who has the job is the one that determines whether they're willing to take that flow of candidates or not. So it's not fair for you just to assume that they're sitting there waiting for you to send them candidates. They put up a hand and said they wanted help. You got to call them and say, I'm going to work on this. Are you good with that? They say, no, I already have 4 other people that I promised that I'm going to give them feedback on. I don't need a 5th. You got to go, okay, I'm moving on. I'm finding another one. But if you start investing your time, which is the only commodity I think that recruiters really have in this world is time. If you start investing your commodity of time, your billable hours, so to speak, in somebody else's work without confirming they want your help, you're crazy.
Well, and that's basically basic prospect qualification right there.
Yeah.
Would you do that with a client if they had a job posted? Would you just start sourcing and chucking people? I mean, I guess people do that, but like it doesn't work. I mean, maybe once in a blue moon it works, and that's why people do it. But if you go into these split relationships, and I've had some success in them myself, and whether organically or even playing around with some boards, and like you have to qualify the requirement. Don't make any assumptions. When you recruit for a customer, you don't make assumptions. You ask the questions. Are there people being considered already? Like all your points about like who they're looking at. Do you have, if they have enough candidates right now and they don't need more, you move on to another prospect. It's really no different.
There's other things like, so the position description that your partner is sharing says needs to have 5 years of experience. And you go, so if you're having a conversation, it's like, hey, if I find somebody who's in this direct position working for a competitor and has only been doing it for 3 years, would your client talk to them? Oh yeah, sure they would. Okay, so let's talk about, your client is, and they go, I can't tell you the client. You just go, I don't think I want to put 20, 40 hours of my time into a nebulous. It might work. It might not work. If I can't be in a partner relationship with you where I know who the client is, then I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Or it's going to become a B priority for me. And there's somebody else that's sharing information at a full level with me that's going to get my A effort, and you're going to get my B effort. Is that really what you want? And I think you have to have those kind of frank relationship type questions.
As you train on this stuff at conferences, right? I mean, like this kind of like culturally, for hear you talk like this means a lot, because the fish stinks from the head down, right? In a good way as well, right? So yeah, is this something that's pervasive? How do you get that culture?
Well, and so people meet one another at conferences, and then, people will look at them and say, "Hey, I want to work with you in your space." And they get a yes or a no, they get a cold reaction to it, or they get something that's warm and they say, "Yeah, I'd love to work with you. Let's see if we can make it happen." And what happens is they follow up after the meeting and they say, "Okay, here's the job. Here's what you need to do. We're going to work on this." A lot of people will give a single partner a 1 or 2 week, let's call it a head start, if nothing else, but it's an exclusive that says, "I'm not going to bring in other NPA partners until you've had a chance to show me what you can do." And that way you're not really competing with the whole network. You're a partner relationship one-on-one at that point. And if you do good work, it's going to continue and nobody else is going to be entering this scenario. If it's bad work that you're doing, you're going to be dismissed. And you got to be okay with that too, if you're not doing good work.
And you know what's funny? It's amazing to me that when it comes to those upfront conversations need to be had, whether they're with external clients or potential split partners, or the stuff that you need to address up front. As recruiters, so many of us will have no problem spending night and day sourcing, calling, screening, writing up, submitting, but not respect our time enough to just ask some of those questions. They're not that hard, and it's not confrontational. It's basic, but it's amazing how often, and I was like this early in my career too, where I was more of kind of like an order taker because I didn't know any better. I didn't ever push back on anything. I think that's a lot of us eventually learn not to, but it's just fascinating that we will do that to ourselves, where there's some simple qualification questions we can ask. We won't ask those, but we'll just spin our wheels for a couple of weeks and hope that something good will happen. And that, if there's something I could impart, especially to newer people getting to this business, take what Dave's saying very seriously, even in the jobs you take on in the outside world.
Well, and we also do reinforce with our people who are posting jobs that when you're posting a job on the network, you're saying you want help.
Right.
So if somebody sends you something, it's common courtesy to respond. Your response can be, "Hey, I'm overwhelmed and I've got a lot of people I'm really close with and they're working on this. I'll take a look at this one that you sent me, but you need to call me in advance next time." That's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. No response is a little rude, and it really shouldn't work that way. It doesn't take that long. If you've opened the email, you can reply pretty quickly. If you've opened the email and you've looked at the attachment, you need to reply. That's another scenario. And the other thing I think I mentioned to you, David, is you have to have a system for tracking where candidates come from if you're going to be working in a network. So in our network, and this happens probably less than it did 20 years ago, but people will submit candidates to other partners. They go, "Oh, I don't have anything for them right now. I'll keep them in my database." They note that it came from, John Smith sent that one to me in May of 2010. And then later they pull it out of their database and they use that candidate and they fill a job with it. There are members of ours that will send a check for 50% of the fee to the partner who submitted that candidate to them in 2010. And in the mail comes a check, and they don't even know why they're getting it, other than it's got a candidate's name list on it. And they go, "Oh,
amazing.
I must have provided that to them."
Dave, elephant in the room. What whopping percentage of the split do you guys take? Because they hate giving up these split percentages and they add up. What percentage does NPA take? Tell everyone loud and clear.
We take 5% of the split. So
right, nothing.
Well, I look at it this way. It's really, it's 5% from each side. So sometimes we end up referring to it as 2.5 from each side.
It's
but
cheap.
The members get to keep 47.5%.
Right.
Some of them work out different scenarios than 47.5, 47.5, and 5. But if that 5% from your side is going to change your life, then you got bigger problems.
Honestly, Dave, it's the best deal that I've seen out there in splits. Again, I have no skin in the game here whatsoever. So I think it's not a cost that you're going to worry about on it.
And there's a value that comes from it, boss. There's a value that comes from that one, and that is we have a thing called indemnification, and that is if for some reason you do a split with somebody and they fail to pay you, then you can apply for indemnification, which means that NPA will make good on the amount that you were due, and that happens.
That's a huge deal.
We probably
That's really big.
Yeah,
sorry to
that's huge, Dave. I'm gonna make sure my people know that. That's massive. I love that. That's great to know.
So I would say, like, in my first 5 years of existence at NPA, I could count those indemnifications on less than a full hand. I'd say it's more regular in today's world than it was in 2006 or 2016, but we still do. You know, we might pay out as much as $20,000 or $30,000 a year.
And can I say they should join just for your conference? I mean that. I mean that is the most engaged, and everyone who spoke there said it. It's not like I speak at ASA, I speak at NAPS. Love NAPS, but they're totally different. The engagement because of the partnership. Go for that alone. And they're always
the next one.
Things they don't make money on this thing, as he said. They're not looking to make money. It's not an event to make money, which is what the other ones do. It's an event for you. It's amazing, honestly.
So I ended up pricing our event with David's going to be at in Salt Lake. I just ended up pricing it this morning with Veronica, who's in a car on her way to Australia. To an airport on our way to Australia. But it's going to be about $450 for the event, which is ridiculous because if you've looked at other events that are 3 days in length, they're all upwards of $2,000 a piece.
Yeah, that's a great
$2,500, $2,000. It's amazing, but it's not just the.
And we have DSP at ours.
DSP.
Come on.
Yeah,
did I see that?
I can't say enough, Dave.
Did I see that you have a global one, but you also have some smaller, more regional ones too? Is that?
Yeah, we just have one in Tampa, St. Pete at the end of September. We've got one coming up this coming week in Brisbane, Australia. I mean, just some of the places that I've been in the last couple of years, because I end up going to a lot of these. So we've had meetings in Sicily, Barcelona, Cyprus, Lisbon, Porto, Beijing, Taiwan, Venice, Vietnam. So some members use them as kind of free travel events, but they also make connections. So we didn't talk about global yet, but we were talking a little bit about, outside your key niche area that you might be working, like, what Chris worked with leadership things outside of that, but also think about it geographically. So Chris, you have a company that's based in Atlanta and they decide they need a head of sales or VP of finance in Switzerland. What are you going to do?
Right.
They're going to go someplace else, or they're going to sit there. They have sleepless nights worrying about this crap. You have a solution for them that you can implement like that, where they continue to talk to you as their key contact, but somebody else is finding the person for them and helping them select a candidate in Switzerland.
So that's amazing too, because I think about, like, for example, the number of companies I work with that are like a subsidiary of a global organization, right? I might hire like in their US operation, I might hire a senior leader, but they're based in Germany or whatever, right? And if to go after that business, A, it would be a distraction, and B, they would be like, well, do you have experience hiring in, wherever? And I would not be able to say that. But now you basically be able to say, after you talk to a couple of partners, you say, actually, I do have a resource on my team can handle that, has done that. Let's bring them on a call and let's the three of us talk and see if it makes sense for us to take on this search. That's a ton of power right there. It's
a wonderful solution for your client. So, I mean, can you imagine? I was talking to, I got a call from a prospective client about 2 months ago now, and she's beside herself because the president has asked her, she's the head of HR, to find somebody for her in Germany. And she's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I go, I'm going to have a member call you, somebody who's local to where you are, speaks your language, understands where you are, who you are, and what you do. And they're going to find a connection for you in this foreign country, wherever it happens to be, to provide you the solution you want. She's like, oh my gosh, you've solved a problem for me that I had no idea how to solve. So,
all right, guys. Now I want to bring something up here. First off, before I do so, just real quick in the comments, I can't see everybody's name, but Jacob Kamar from Ghana, really glad to have you here. Sarah, thank you for your comment as well. Crystal, glad to have you here. And anybody else, feel free to comment. If you have any questions for Dave, post them down below, because if we have some time, we'll do some little Q&A. And to go along with that, we have a situation that we'd like to get your thoughts on. Chris, if you do you have the post that
actually I was, as you were talking, I was just pulling that up because I had a feeling that's where you're going to go with it.
Well, while you're waiting, Dave, do I call him David or you Dave? I'm so confused with two Davids on the
David DSP.
I go by Dave, and my mother called me David when she was mad at me.
Were you ever called
reverse? My parents call me Dave, and I decided when I was here to Tampa, go by David. So that's my, But
we talked about Chloe, Michelle. Which one is that?
I actually have it right here in front. Hear me if you want me to read it.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So Michelle Peavy, she's one of the members in Neil's group, Ursa, and said, I need a safe place for this group to vent. I've established a recruiting split partnership with another recruiter. Both signed a fee split agreement. Start sourcing multiple positions. And I'll kind of make this short because it's a bit of a long post. Basically, the split partner confirmed that her candidates were submitted into the client and locked into their ATS portal for consideration. But a month ago, he went to dinner with the client, the split partner, to get feedback on her candidates, and then crickets, went MIA, and he's been dodging her calls, her emails for the last few weeks. And this is somebody that she's known for a couple of years, and he's just gone silent. So that said, might be kind of a hard one, but that's basically the skinny. What would you do in that situation?
Oh man, I mean, first of all, you can take an optimistic point of view, or maybe it's a pessimistic one. I mean, maybe something happened to the person that they're unable to respond. I mean, stuff does happen. Secondly, I guess I'd be in contact with the candidates to see if they've been interviewed, to see if they've had any offers put forward. One of the things that is a stipulation in our rules is you really can't submit a candidate to a partner, to a client's MSP or VSP, whatever you want to call it, system, where the system says, oh, well, your candidate is good for 30 days in our system, and if we hire them for a different job or outside of 30 days when you submitted them, you will get no fee. And there are a lot of deals like that. I don't know if you guys are tuned into those, but you're not allowed to submit somebody else's candidate under that kind of a scenario unless you've told the partner and the partner says, yeah, go ahead, submit them. But I would start talking to the candidates and see what's going on. Have they been interviewed? Have they gotten any offers? And if they've gotten an offer, taken a job, then also monitor their LinkedIn. I mean, there are people who do this for a living, backdoor hire, and other people that can monitor things like that for you. But at some point, you may need to get an attorney involved and draft some documentation that goes out to your partner who is incommunicado.
Hey, we lost
Backdoor Hire, by
Chris.
the way. Great plug for those who don't know it. Right, it's a service that you give them the info, they'll track and find, and they'll just follow up regularly to see if someone hired one of your candidates. A really cool idea, really cool. Right? So FYI, good point.
Now we have the question down here in the comments. It says LinkedIn private, so we can't see who made the comment, but asks, what do you see in the next 3 months? And actually that dovetails into one of my questions I wanted to ask is similar. What do you see happening over the next, 3 months or a year, but just, we're going into a weird economy. What do you see happening? Where do you see the economy going, in your opinion, given that you talk to people all over the world? And the second part of that question is, what should your average independent recruiter do to either prepare or or what should they change about what they do to make sure that they can thrive instead of struggling like a lot of recruiters are right now?
So, I mean, I think the shift that I see is the pendulum swings back and forth across the midpoint, and it swings to the side of the candidate and it swings back to the side of the client. And I think that pendulum has swung back across midpoint and is pointing more towards the client. I think the jobs that you're going to see are going to be fewer. I think the jobs that you see in the future are going to be more demanding. So they're not going to be the easy ones that you can bang out 3 or 4 in a couple of weeks. These are going to be the purple squirrel type searches that you're going to be going on. I would say if you're an independent recruiter, that you need to figure out how to hold on to your existing client base as much as possible. You need to figure out how to expand the amount of work you're doing within your existing client base, meaning taking on things that are outside your core niche area, looking for things outside your core geography, and figure out how you can leverage those as part of your business. I would also say that if you're not doing business development, you need to be doing business development, because you will lose clients. Clients will go out of business, or they'll get merged, or something will happen. And you need to have a fresh pipeline of new client companies coming in. So I would really start to shift some of my focus away from purely candidate search and purely candidate marketing, more to client marketing. There are going to be a lot of that have capability to find candidates for you. Leverage them, let them do that work, and you move on to doing what you do best. And if what you do best is getting clients, do a lot of it. If what you do best is getting candidates, do a little bit more of it.
Well, now I know for a lot of recruiters who are long in the tooth, as I say, they've been long in the tooth, been in business for a long time. One of the big issues I see is that they relied so for so many years on legacy clients, and then they go away. And when you're a rookie, you don't know any better, right? You can bang out calls all day long, but when you're a veteran, it's kind of hard because you're so far removed from it. So specifically for those who are like veterans, how can they get themselves back into that biz dev mindset like the rookies are, right? Because the rookies, honestly, you put a rookie on the phone, have them bang out 100, 200 calls a day and email. I mean, they can make something happen. For a veteran, they get this weird mindset issue. I find a lot. Yep. So what would your advice be for the folks?
So I think, recruiters can be a little bit like candidates sometimes. And that means that anything looks like a good target. You got to stop doing that. So you would suggest perhaps to a candidate who's looking for a job, what's your target? What are the 10 companies, the 20 companies that you would want to have a relationship with, and you're well suited to have a relationship with them? So, I mean, like in our network, people they'll go with the Fortune 500 companies. They want to figure out who's working those so that they can work those. You know what? If you're a small to medium size, you're 2-3 people in an office, that's not your core market. Your core market is the small to medium sized business that has somebody who's head of HR, and they also are head of, sales or something else. I mean, that's where your core niche is. So build a list of companies geographically, by specialty, by likeness to your core and best clients over a long period of time. Build a list of 10, 15, 20, 25. Work them to death and forget Coca-Cola. Leave the big Fortune 500s alone.
Well, that's a really good point, because that took me up until even a few years ago to really dial into and really pay attention to, was to understand like my ideal customer profile. And I tell you, like, you're exactly right. Like, we see the big names, right? Like, I handled that back when I had a larger team, and we did some enterprise work, and we were putting 20 people at one company and like temp jobs or whatever. When you're solo or a small team, listen, it is a lot easier to do business development with like small businesses, because you're way more likely to get a hold of a decision maker. And like what you just said, like, that's my bread and butter. Companies with, 25, 50, 100, maybe almost 200 employees, where there's one overworked HR person or none at all. And the likelihood that you're talking to the founder or like second generation owner or whatever is extremely high. You're very close to the pain, because when you're going after, I'm telling everybody stuff they already know, but when you're going after the big brand names that excite you, like, they're the ones who also, they're going to kill you if you're solo, because they're going to kill you on payment terms. They're going to be all sorts of bureaucracy. Everybody's courting them. Why not help the small business shine? Why not be an advocate for them? And then that's where you're actually adding some value. But I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, no,
it's a big more of an impact, really. And on top of that, these big companies are going to have you sign some totalitarian authoritarian.
It's a very one-sided transaction.
Totalitarian vendor agreement.
They're not signing your agreement.
Which, by the way, the word vendor, I almost want to. Whenever I hear the word vendor, I hate that. Well, sorry,
everyone knows Robert Half and Account Temp. So I was with them before I was president of Agilon. The 80% of their business when I was there is this small to mid cap business. Is exactly what you're talking. People would be shocked, and they also don't want to go through all the rigmarole with these giant. 80% of these, and they were amazing.
It's a quicker path.
Yeah, and it's gold, and they will pay and you're not going after all these giant machines, and they want to avoid that now because they were Robert Half and everyone knew their ads and stuff. They'll get 20% that bigger. I'm sure it's a different demo, but it's still largely it's to everyone's point. It's
Well, and so back to what Dave the guest, not Dave the host, was saying about your business development mix. I have been in the shoes of the solo recruiter or small business that's gotten fat and happy and then had a dry pipeline, and it freaking sucks. So having a good mix and so when you have to start from zero, whether you're a relative, let's say you either are experienced, you spent 5 years in the business, now you're hanging out your own shingle. So somebody like NPA will give you a shot because you've had experience, or you're like me, you've done this for a while and it's just your pipeline kind of dried up a little. No matter how experienced you are, or how many crazed phone calls you're making, it will take a little bit to get that engine running again. So why not be on a split platform where you're going to get in your own head, and if you're just making cold calls for a couple of weeks or a couple of months with no new job orders, you're going to drive yourself nuts. Why not, while you're pursuing those business development paths, also hop on a split platform like a good one, start working some jobs, developing some partnerships, so money will come in. And you'll also maintain your sanity because you'll feel like you're getting somewhere while you get your ship back, your plane off the ground again. So I think that's how I would approach it, because otherwise you're just going to be in an office by yourself or at your house, just hammering out calls, not getting, I don't know what to do. This at least gives you something to do to bridge that gap, bring some money in, and who knows, maybe it'll end up being a really good channel for you, but you got to have more than one channel.
Well, the other thing that being a part of a network might allow for you is if your niche is going dry for some reason, you might have much greater ability to move into a different space because you're part of the network. So, for instance, we have a guy, I was telling David about this story a couple of days ago, but we had a guy that Australia was going into recession. He didn't want to participate in the Australian recession, so he determined he was going to work U.S. jobs from Australia. So he changed his work hours to coincide pretty much with U.S. work hours. And he worked for a couple of years, and he was consistently in our top 5 producers for a couple of years because he was working exclusively U.S. jobs in the U.S. from Australia. And
that mobility that's fantastic.
Yeah, you can change.
Now, Dave, I do want to ask you, so Chris mentioned find a good split network. I'm curious, do you know of any decent split networks people can join? Any idea? I might have heard of one.
The only one I know of starts with NPA and ends with Worldwide. But
and Dave, I will say this. I'm doing a promo. Yeah. I'm going to send out, and I've done it for my group. Dave, you have a promo for everyone on there, right? To share that. I know you're not.
I do. In fact, I want to read this comment. This is a really good comment someone posted. I was a vendor, for the folks who are just listening, I was a vendor at the NPA conference in NOLA when COVID broke out across the world. The group welcomed me with such open arms. I was highly impressed by the relationships among the members and professionalism exhibited across the conference. These success stories were unbelievable. It was an amazing experience to engage with the group and learn all the support NPA provides to its membership. Highly recommend this group. And then it looks like there's an address for you to send the check, Dave. So make sure you get the check in the mail.
First thing I say, David, this can't be true because we would never refer to anybody as a vendor. I hate that word. They're either a sponsor or a partner. They are not a vendor.
How dare they?
It's a great recommendation. I've yet to talk to anybody who said anything bad to say about NPA. I mean, I've heard a lot of bad about Neil, a lot of bad about Chris, maybe a little bit bad about me. But nothing bad about NPA.
Well, listen, what did I tell you, David? When I first made the intro, whatever, David was like, no, I don't do those things. Not my, but you don't. It's not your gig. David's a digital thing. I'm like, Yeah, I mean, yeah, like unbelievable. Like,
and this is going to be my first speaking gig in quite a few years. So this is, I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, let's do some promos here, because I want to make sure that if anybody wants to join NPA, really, all I got to do is go to NPAworldwide.com and just, I'm sure there's like a contact form on there as well, where they can,
we have a
to
promo. There was a, Dave, do you have that handy, or we'll email that out after?
Which promo is it? Was that the split agreement?
No, it's for joining, and I'll send it out to my people on it, whatever, from Sarah.
Sarah Freiberger and Neil worked on a special promo.
Yeah, we'll post it.
Okay, we'll email that out after the fact.
So come back to the page and look for your link and the promo for Dave.
Actually, you know what we'll do? We'll drop it in the comments. So once we get it, we'll drop it in the comments a little bit later today. Somebody watching now can go back to the live, and they'll see it in the comments.
I have a great idea, right? Make a comment in there right now. Just say follow, and then you'll be notified when we drop it. So how's that for increasing our likes?
Man,
I bet you Sarah.
You're too old to know those interweb Facebook tricks.
Sarah might be able to post it in the chat.
Yeah, Sarah, post it right now too. Totally. But we're in a bunch of groups, though, is the problem. We're all over.
What we'll do is Trix, my executive assistant. She's on in the green room. Trix, just go find that link and drop it in all the other lives if you could. That would be great. And by the way, if anybody wants to get some of the best back office support that you'll ever find, boss, that's Neil's company right there. Go to backofficenow.com/staffing.
That's Back Office Staffing Solutions with a new URL to make the typing easier.
I'll tell you what, one thing's really cool, because I've compared a lot of different back office firms, and granted, Neil's a buddy, but it really is a great service. I'll tell you what, there's this, they've got this app. Can I talk about the app? Can I talk about the app?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, this app coming out. You can actually have your like a branded app for your contractors and for your clients, like with your logo and your colors. I don't think anybody's doing that right now.
No.
I mean, it's just pure eye candy, and I'll tell you, it is one of the best deals in the business. Just the deal itself, one of the best support. And I'm not just saying that because Neil is my buddy, but actually is true, because candidly, in secret, I actually kind of hate Neil, and it pains me to say this stuff about him, but I do have to say, go to
you, and I have a little bit of you and me. There's some DSP in this. There's a likeness. There's a DSP-ness to it. Sorry, I always like to say DSP-ness.
Now,
get it? DSP-ness, N-E-S-S, DSP-ness.
And I will say for me, I got a couple of promos for myself as well. Two things. One, our program, Agency Growth Machine. If you want a done-for-you build of your sales and marketing system, go to realdsp.me/build. And I have one more promo. We have a new Off of Flakebook group. So if you are sick of Facebook policing what you say, you can go to realdsp.me/syndicate. It's called the Headhunters Syndicate. It is a new off Facebook community for recruiters. It's brand new, only a couple of weeks old. And again, no policing of thoughts, open ideas, free discussion. It's the marketplace of ideas, and I love it. So, and we'll have some exclusive content in there as well. So go to realdsp.me/syndicate. And with that said, Dave, it's fantastic to have you here, man. Really, really was. I think we've had some good shows. This is our best one yet. Best one yet.
Number 11 is epic. I'm just saying, it's going to be epic. You're going to get a lot of views.
We have changed.
It was my jersey number when I played sports in high school. I wasn't very good, but I mean, that's something.
That is something.
I picked that jersey because there was 2 number 1s, and one number 1 wasn't available. So
our dozens of viewers are going to be transformed today.
Yeah, this has been a great show.
Hey, this was not nearly as bad as people told me it was going to be, so I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Well, guys, it's time for us to wrap the show. All right, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody. We love you all. Dave, thank you. Chris, thank you. Neil, thank you. And, of course, me, I'll thank myself. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week. Peace out.